My goodness, everybody quieted down so well. I was expecting to come up here and say, class, time to begin. So, good afternoon, everybody. How are you all? Good, good? Very, very good. I'm actually so excited to be here with all of you to share a little bit of how last year went, what were some highlights, what were some learnings to improve, and of course the main reason we're all gathered here today is so that we can talk more about the strategic plan and the implementation. I was pointing back here because I will introduce them in a minute if you don't already know, but clearly people who are very, very instrumental in the whole planning process, getting us here, and then we'll talk about what next, how do we implement. So, I already told you the headline of what we're going to talk about. It's a year in review, looking back and looking ahead. Highlights. So as I talk about where we've been, I don't expect you to memorize all these numbers. You'll have them all available to you, of course, but really to do a big picture view of what happened last year. And as before, I will start with our students first. How did we do on our learning mission? I'll talk about our faculty and staff in terms of how did we do on our work mission, and finally talk about how did we do in terms of all the key constituencies investing in us. So that's kind of the outline, and along the way, you know that I've said we'll be a great place to learn and work and invest because we celebrate diversity, because we foster equity, and because we strive for inclusion. So you'll see that I will weave those through as I continue. Many people on the team are here, so my hope is that after the presentation, you'll all take time to stick around for the reception, because that's where I think we can continue to have the rich conversations that we need on how we will all work together as a team going forward. So last year, we saw, and a lot of credit for this goes to our provost, Dr. Beth Boehm, and her whole team. Will you raise your hand, Beth? Okay. She's new to the university, so I thought I should introduce her. Last year, if you see, on a 4-year graduation rate, we saw a significant uptick, similarly on a 5-year and 6-year. And this shows what can happen even in the span of 1 year by putting a lot of effort and attention. I'll speak a little bit about that. So we, of course, we benefited by the increased academic profile. The more incoming students who are prepared, the better off we are. But we also did a number of other things very, very thoughtfully, strategically. We knew that we must increase the number of student success coordinators. This is vital. We know that we have a huge percentage of our students. Last count last year, it was about 38% of our students who are Pell Grant eligible. So when you have a large body of students who have very low financial resources, and many of them who are also first gen, you know that navigating college can be an overwhelming task, right? People say you need a PhD to fill out a FAFSA form. You know, it's like complicated. And so how do you go around and manage this? So really credit to the team for increasing our student success coordinators. We've really focused on retention efforts. You'll see more about that. Intrusive advising, and something that we really believe in is living learning communities. And you'll see more about just learning communities. It's not that you always have to have living learning communities, that's ideal, but if not, I know that Dean Martis keeps talking about just learning communities and how important that is. Sorry, I don't have a screen there, so I'll have to look at this as I talk to you. Graduation and retention growth, you can see the trajectory we've been on, but we cannot be complacent. We've got to do better, people. This is one of the biggest things we can do for ourselves, for society, for the students and their families. So I talked to you about the graduation rates a little bit. Ooh. I guess that was a very important point to make. Can you hear me okay? All right. So on retention and persistence, again, as I said, a couple of provost commitments, provost projects, deliverables for last year were one, she had a fund of $5 million to say allocate it across the university for recruitment and retention efforts. The bad news is it was one-time funding. The good news is it was one-time funding at least. So there were about 56 proposals that received funding. And I know that through this process, what we've learned is there's so many great ideas. And Beth and her team worked hard to make sure if a same idea came up from different people, of putting them together, of sharing these ideas, and if nothing else, we all have a treasure trove of ideas of what we need to do next. We don't have to say we don't know what to do. And the Enrollment Management Advisory Committee that has put in a lot of hard work, and the idea is, given who we are, how do we mitigate the risks? How do we continue to grow? I don't know how much detail to go into all of these, but we just wanted to give you a sense of what happened last year. So the Enrollment Management Committee really organized itself around three major themes. Enrollment management, but as we've all said, it's not just about getting people in the door. We're committed to their success. So a second part of it was all around persistence. And the third was how do we utilize our summers better? This is something, again, that's a pet peeve of mine. Which other industry do you have huge fixed assets that lie unused for a significant part of the year? We've got to figure out how to use our resources so that if there's class crunch that people are not able to get into, if they want to take internships at different parts of the year, we do everything we can to help our students stay on track, to graduate and go on to a great future, however they might define it. So, retention and persistence. You've seen the numbers, and I thought it might be instructive to you to see a little bit about how that came about. So for contrast, we don't have to go through every single one, but look at summer 2018, when we started, and fall 2019, this latest semester. In 2018, we discovered that for many, many majors, they were not good planning tools. It's easy to tell a student to keep on track. It's easy to tell an advisor, keep them on track. But without the right tools, that becomes a really difficult project. And this time, we're very pleased to say that in 1 year, we have over 200 majors and minors who have access to the degree audit and the smart planner. And I know it's not enough. I know it's not enough, that just giving them the tools is not enough. But without the tools, it's definitely more difficult. And all we're trying to do is reduce the friction between a student and success. That's what we are about. We've increased the number of student success coordinators. I'm a big believer in it because one person that they can go to can then help them figure out, is it financial, is it academic, is it health? How can they help you navigate and succeed? We've also decided that there are a lot of students who don't quite know what they want to do, and we cannot just let them go about their business. We need to be there. I usually tell students, if they say, I'm deciding, no, I'm undecided, I tell them, no. Use the word I'm deciding. Don't tell me you're undecided. You're deciding, you're exploring, you're trying to figure out what the right path is for you. That's been a big push. Something we're really happy that has been an outcome, it wasn't directly us, but we certainly lobbied for this, is you know that a lot of our students take advantage of the Metro College, where they can work at UPS and graduate without debt. We think that's a really great opportunity for our students, but we were concerned that if the pay rate wasn't enough, that might not be enough. They might have to take on more. So we're very grateful to UPS for increasing the starting pay from $10.60 to $14 an hour. That will make a difference to these young people. Diversity. You'll see that I'll come back to it multiple times, but one of the highlights was that a big hurdle for students, we know that, underrepresented minority students is performance on the mathematics intervention courses. There's a broader discourse across the nation, as you know, about math courses and how we structure them. And every CPE meeting, the Council on Post-Secondary Education, we talk about it. Do we need the same level of college algebra for no matter what major? How do we create different pathways? But a big test of that is this intervention courses. So we are not happy. I'd like it to be 100% for all the students who are going through this, but we've bridged the gap. So as you can see, 73.3%, 73.4% for white and non-white students that are going through the class. So it's progress, it's progress. This is what we need to be doing more. I'll talk about the mentoring program later. I'll just skip here because there are several aspects that we are talking about. The financial aid counselors, we thought that was very, very important to do. Two of them, one, to help students fill out the paperwork. For so many students, there's money left on the table that they don't know how to access. Anything we can do to keep costs low for our students and affordable is important. A second one that is dedicated to focusing on students, helping them not just in affording college in terms of when you first start, but how to make your way through college. How do you think about this? How do you set yourself up to minimize debt when you graduate? We didn't put it on here, but I should brag on that. Through our efforts, I don't know if you know, and I hope you do tell the story from now on, we at the University of Louisville have the lowest college student debt at graduation of any public institution in Kentucky. That's a big deal. So our students graduate with lower debt than any other public higher education system in the Commonwealth. And we need to continue to do that. All right. There won't be a quiz because I'm having to look to read out the numbers to you, but I hope you can see that we're making progress. This is retention of first-time freshmen from year 1 to year 2. I need your help. I really need your help. In fact, I'm hoping, Matthew, to ask all of you students for help as well. I'm serious. Where I'm saying, if you see someone that looks like they're lost, that looks like they are struggling, reach out, ask. A lot of people will not be the first ones to initiate and ask you. So if you say, is there anything I can help you with, that will go a long way. That's the culture we want to create. Of course, when students stay, succeed, thrive, flourish, it's because we're meeting their needs as the whole student. A second initiative, as you know, that's really important to us, that our provost is championing and our whole team, is student mental health. If there's one thing that we all worry about, we all know someone in our lives that we worry about their mental health. Are they able to handle what's coming their way? So one of the things is more resources that we are putting towards the counseling center. We're trying to provide new and expanded space. I won't spill the beans. Mark Watkins and others are hard at work, but we are committed to it. We cannot just say it's important. We're going to provide the resources so that more people can do this. I'm so proud of our faculty. Not surprised. I've been here a year. This is what I would expect. But we've had faculty and staff. I don't want to forget that, at Staff Senate, where they have said, how can we be a part of this? What can we do to help promote student mental health? Because the truth is, a lot of times, it's not a faculty member. It might be a staff member that a student says, I'm stressed out about an exam, or I don't know what to do. It's a housing situation, whatever the case might be. A couple of other things about retention, persistence, as we're talking about the students. We're trying to get more resources. So Norton's a deal so that students who are transferring here from Metro College or JCPS and want to go into, not transfer, come here with an interest in healthcare and allied fields to get more scholarships and funding for them. Commonwealth Credit Union, a great partner to us that's trying to provide more financial literacy coaching for all of our students. I think that's also very, very important when we think about the whole student. Academic preparedness, putting all the resources in there. Financial, trying to reduce the stress around that. Mental health, providing opportunities. And of course, trying to prepare them for life. When we get to the strategic plan, we'll talk a little bit about this, but we are saying we believe in the whole student and their success now, next, and beyond. So that's part of the commitment. Am I going too fast, too slow? Just right. All right, good. Good answer. I'm just going to take one person's answer and not look at the rest of you. All right. Allergies, people. My goodness. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just wanted to show you again that throughout the strategic planning process, we've kept it front and center, right? Every team was told, you have to think about these issues. You must address them. So Porter Scholars, in fall 2018, we had 195 freshmen. This year, we have 215. We've increased the number of first-time enrollment of African-American students from 464 to 489. That's good. But we are not done just because we bring them in. So as much as I'm happy to see this trend, I would say we can only say we've done well when we bridge the graduation gap and every one of them is walking off the stage with their degree. That's when we know we've done our job. While I just mentioned Porter Scholars as one example, I don't want to minimize all of the other RSOs that we have. As you all know, we have like 450 registered student organizations, but of those, more than 70 of them appeal to multicultural students in some way. And they're allies. I love it. When I go to some of these, and it's really for people who have an affinity and interest in supporting these students and their activities. The Cultural Center, we're again trying to make sure that we assess their success by being a safe space, by being a resource, and that's something that we will continue to foster, encourage, and put resources behind. As you all know, Dr. Faye Jones is now our in charge of our diversity efforts. And a quick reminder to all of you, in case you've forgotten, we moved the diversity office to report directly to the president. It's not that it was reporting to the provost, and it wasn't as though people in that office said, we don't want to deal with it. It was more of our decision to say, this is so important. If I keep bringing up diversity, equity, and inclusion, then it needs to be something that's directly accountable to me. And so that's why we made that change. So let's take a look. I don't know if there's a Surface Pro pen here, but I won't try to highlight it for you. In terms, okay, Michael's shaking his head. That won't happen. So let's take a look. What I want to point out to you is, if you look at our retention rates, URM is underrepresented minority. This is CPE language for our students. We retain 2018 to 19 about 75% of them, whereas the overall retention rate is 80%. And if you look at low income, we retain about 73% of them. That's one thing for you to note. Similarly, if you look at the graduation rates, if overall is 58, for underrepresented minorities, it's about 4% less, right? You can see that. But look at the gap for low-income students. It's almost 10%. We keep talking about the intersectionality of identities. You can't put people into just one category. There's so many things that come into making us who we are. So we clearly see an issue with low-income students. That's what I would bring up to you, and we'll talk about how we are addressing it. A lot of them are also underrepresented minority students, not necessarily everybody, as you know, but that's a real concern. How are we going to support the students? And you'll see that once we get to the strategic plan in a little bit. That's just a look at our students, who they are, and all of these data will be available to you. So I just thought you might be interested in who they are, where they come from, and about 72% of them will live on campus. That's good. We will never forget our commuter students. We have a big contingency of them, but we want to provide affordable options as much as possible because we know living on campus, having that support system can give them a big boost. On recruitment, we're making every effort. I almost started it with the funnel reversed on purpose to say we're going to talk about who graduated, we're talking about who persisted, and now I'm talking about how we're bringing in people as well. Mainly because I wanted you to focus symbolically and functionally that our goal is not just to bring students in, because in my mind the worst thing is a student who comes, stays here for a year, and drops out because they're incurring some debt, they are feeling disillusioned, they may give up on these dreams. So that's why we're going the reverse path in case you have that question. More out-of-state recruiters, that's going to be important. As you know, the percentage of students in Kentucky who are headed for college, if you look, population outlook, demographics tell us that those numbers are going down. So we are not turning away any kid from the Commonwealth. We are always open to them, but we're trying to make sure that we keep that pipeline strong. Jim Begani, is that a fair way to? Okay. So if you have more questions, you know who to talk to. Really proud of our deans because in addition to maintaining strong programs, and that's important, I'm not just saying it's about creating new programs, but they are responding to the marketplace. And I could go through each one, but look at in business, whether it's the business analytics certificate, the horse racing industry business certificate, the BBA, Bachelor's of Science in Management. I could go all the way down, but in the interest of time, I will not. But these are efforts to be responsive to the marketplace. All right? I will also say the deans who are in the room, would you stand up for a minute? All right, this is great. So if you have any questions, you know who to reach out to. So sit down, please. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to all of you because I actually mean this quite sincerely. I have been so impressed with our deans in terms of saying, I'm ready, I know we have to do something, what can we do? How can I be part of the solution? So thank you very much, quite sincerely. And this one on student housing. I think I was barely here a week when I heard about this from Michael Martis that we really need to move on student housing, and it's on me. I said, pause, I need to know better before we make other commitments. But I'm really pleased that we now have work well underway with architects and contractors, and we'll have 2 new residence halls opening, one in fall 2021, one in fall 2022. That's going to be so good for us because we'll be able to accommodate more of our students, and 4 new LLCs. Living Learning Communities, we're not starting new businesses here. It's business, sustainability, ethics, and music. I love that. Look at the variety. And sustainability is so interdisciplinary. I mean, all of the students have a real passion around this. And I think someone wrote to me this morning saying, you know, this is important for my generation. And my response back was, yes, we do. And in fact, the commitment of your generation gives our generation hope. So we are really excited. Music, ethics, again, think about how broad that can be and how wonderful that we have students who say they'll study it. Business is the one I know best, so I won't say more about it, but I think this is exactly what we need to be doing. And again, Michael Martis can talk to you more about anything you want. Okay, actually on the next one, I want a little drum roll. Come on, you can do this. Good. I'm really proud of this fact, really proud. How do we measure our success as a university? You know how many metrics there are, don't you? It becomes such a game sometimes when you look at how we are ranked. Some universities take the path off. We have the money, so we'll bring the best and brightest college students, defined narrowly, defined only based on your ACT scores or your SAT scores. or how you did in high school, but we will bring just that elite group of students. And I've always wondered, so what does that prove? You bring them in, what does that prove? We take really bright students and we don't screw up? Is that what it is? Like we take them and say, look at how great the graduation is. There's place for that. I'm not minimizing it. I'm so proud of our honors college, so proud. This year, I can vouch for this. We have students who've stayed here, who've turned down Columbia, who've turned down Barnard, who've turned down American University, who've turned down Brown University. I could go on and on. Really proud of that. And we'll increase those numbers. That's terrific, because what we offer is second to none. Depends on what the student puts in. But what really matters to me as a public university in this Commonwealth is the fact that US News and World Report is now tracking who does how on social mobility. On social mobility. So they finally are saying, we realize that we need to somehow adjust for or base the fact that we bring in students who might have to work a little harder because they didn't have the same access to support systems that others had. And would you give yourselves a big round of applause that we had a top performer on social mobility? Yes. Oh, yeah, just in case you didn't know, we're not only a top performer, highest in Kentucky. And a big part of this, I told you, that we have for a Research One university. Today, before you leave, I want all of you to find one of the deans, find the provost, find any of us, find anybody on the strategic planning committee, ask them what is R1, why do we care? Research One from the Carnegie Foundation, right? The Carnegie classification. Or best, ask Rob Kenton, our EVP of research is here. Rob, wave. All right, go find him. Because what I want to tell you is that there's like 122 universities in the US and in Canada that together are called R1, that category, very high performance in research. But among those, and Bob Goldstein can tell you this, you can go find Bob Goldstein, our keeper of all data, that's what I'm calling you. I don't recall the official title, but institutional research, keeper of all truth regarding our UofL. And he will tell you that we have a high percentage of Pell Grant eligible students. So for R1, even within our state, if you look at UK and us, or other universities and us, people forget that we have about 38% of our students who are Pell Grant eligible, whereas for others it might be 23, 25. Do you see what I mean? So this recognition matters a lot. We are changing lives, and not just for those students, but for their families and their communities. All right. I'm enjoying this way too much. I will go through quickly, I promise. Let's segue. So that's a little bit about our students and how they're doing. So what is my assessment to you? I think we've made great strides. I hope you see that. With students, we are beginning to move the needle, but we are nowhere close to where we want to be. So in the next 3 years, we're going to set some ambitious goals for 19 through 22, our first phase of implementation. Faculty, in the abstract, I mean, this doesn't make much sense without context, but just that we want to congratulate so many people who've gone up for tenure. But this is something we do look at. 1 year does not a trend make. It depends on who's going up for tenure. Don't read too much into this, but we thought our board is asking us to regularly report on this, which I'm so proud that they're asking us to do it. They're saying for you to build a strong student body, talented, inclusive diversity, how are you doing on not just recruiting, but retaining and promoting women, people of color? So it's something we monitor. I just thought I would share that with you. Was it a little woohoo for someone who got tenure? All right. Indeed. Staff, the other day someone said something to me that was deeply meaningful. When we were celebrating the years of service and people who'd been here 10 years, 15 years, 25 years, 40 years, it's just so heartwarming to me that people cared enough about this institution to put in that much time. And one of them said to me, it was the sweetest. She said, you're the first president that I remember talking so much about staff. And I think that she's not saying nobody ever did, but that she knows that I do. And it's important. It's really important to me, because on any university campus, staff tend to be the most vulnerable. Students, we all know you matter. We get it. That's why we exist. Faculty, like it or not, we have that sage on stage aura. Whether you're tenured, untenured, whether you're an adjunct, clinical, doesn't matter. You have that authority. And we forget that without the staff, we could not function for 5 minutes, let alone for a whole year. So this is important, and we will continue to support this. So what we want to do for staff, and you'll see we've hired an employee development and success director. And we'll have a mentoring program, a leadership development program, succession planning for staff. And something that we know for improving the climate, and you'll see it in the strategic planning too, we need to make sure that everybody is empowered and everybody feels that they can bring their whole self to work. We hold each other accountable. This is not a free pass, but we really work towards no toxic environments. None of us deserves that. We deserve to work in a workplace where we are treated with respect and dignity. And yes, we've got to support and we've got to perform, but that's something we'll work on. Thank you. And on the HR side, you'll see that Mary Elizabeth Miles and others are working really hard to keep the ball moving forward. Something I wanted you to see is we are doing our best to contain costs as well. Anything we can do to reduce costs. For every member per month, we're trying to do that as well. Better procurement, better terms, trying to keep costs low. Athletics. Again, I'll do a very quick overview to talk to you about how many new head coaches we've hired in the past year, several that have been extended, and the thing that I always look to that's important is how our students are doing. Really proud of them. Our athletes do get tremendous support. Someone who's seen other athletics departments, I can tell you that that's for sure. We provide so much support to our students, and we're really pleased that they have graduated with a 3.25 GPA. On the administration side, that's been a little busy as well, as you know, in 1 year. We've hired a provost, general counsel, CFO, CIO, the vice president for university advancement, senior AVP for communications and marketing, and a new dean of the School of Music. We do also have a busy fall ahead of us. The EVP for research, that search is underway, the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, the provost, and the GC. Those two were 2-year terms. So as promised, we're launching the searches for those. Before someone says, show me the money, this is the last part, then we'll move to the strategic plan. I'm really proud of what we've worked on and what we've accomplished with our budget. You remember that it wasn't what I ever thought I would have to do, but as a newbie president to come in and say we have to take a 5% cut across the board because our SACS accreditation was on the line and our situation was much worse than I had figured. So we're really pleased. I want to talk about the 2020 budget. Again, Dan Durbin is working so hard, the whole team, not just him. When I mention one person, please know that it's a shorthand for that whole team. So we'll get you a lot more detail. I want to make sure that every year you can count on a raise. It might not be gigantic, but it's important. At least keep up with cost of living. That's what we need to be. Inflation is what we need to try. Now, for this year, And I'll tell you the hassles we had and why we couldn't quite do everything we wanted to. But this year, effective January 2020, you'll get a 2% raise. So I'm putting 1% to say, I know you know that if it's only for half a year, it really is like 1%. But I just thought for us, it's not a good idea to say faculty and staff, 2% is not like gigantic, but it's twice as big as 1%. So I really thought we should have at least 2%. That's the 1%, 2%. I hope that's clear. But that'll go into effect in January 2020. And that'll continue through, and that's something we want to keep going. We'll assess, we'll come back to you. The only differences that we've done for this year, the goals were no more budget cuts in your base. So this year, I shouldn't say no more, everybody's like startled. I don't know if it's forever, but for this year, we'll try. I don't think we should. But for this year, no more cuts across the board or otherwise in your base budget. We've increased funding in 2 areas, regulatory, compliance. We've got to do this, as you know, the positions that we need to fill there. And then for student aid, to keep it affordable. We'll come back to that. The things I'm excited about is that now we're finally going to multi-year comprehensive budgets. How can an organization of our size function with year-to-year budgets? If you were a business, would you work that way? Things might change, but we really need to say, what's the trend line? How do we think things will happen? So there are 2 things. One is it's comprehensive all funds model, so each unit can see. And secondly, it's for several years. So it's not just this year, but we can see what are your hiring needs coming up, what might happen down the road. The best part of all of this is the systems. All year we worked on getting you systems, policies, strategies, so that it's demystified. Each of you should be able to have a better idea of what the finances are within your department, within your unit. Liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. You remember how much we talked about this? This is something that Sachs looks at extremely closely as very important. So we've increased our university liquid cash position by 25%. So we were able to put aside another $25 million in 2019. So that brings us to about 50 days of cash on hand. That's still less than halfway to the median that Sachs looks at, but this is important so that we don't get put back on probation for not being able to have cash on hand if everything fails. Enrollment goes to 0. That's what they look at. Like everything goes wrong, how long can you keep the lights on? How long can you work? And we've also provided incentives for each unit to build their own little savings account. And again, you can talk to your deans more, Dan Durbin more, but I'll keep moving ahead. Foundation. This is not something we control. As you know, it's a separate entity from the university, but you might say, why is the endowment value down from 18 to 19? And Keith Sherman, All Reed, the chair, will tell you that our returns were not very good last year. It was about 2% overall, but the spending, the payout that they gave to us was about 30 million or about 5%. So that's part of it. And before you say anything, yes, we're all asking them, is there anything we can do to improve the returns? How else will we stabilize it? And they are taking steps. The old bylaws used to be, your payout was determined on what the endowment value was end of December. So if December was bad, our payout for the whole year would be bad. Now they've moved to a weighted average of over 12 quarters, things like that. Again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to spend too much time here. On philanthropy, one of the things all year we worked on was get people to pledge again. There were 2 things. One, the board said, in the past, we've had a lot of immediate funding, like for current use needs, but we didn't do enough for pledges for endowments. And so we focused a lot on that. You can see philanthropy is cash and pledges, and cash is actual cash in hand. It started to come in. It Took a few months for people to say, do we want to give money? Are things stabilized? What's going on? But I'm happy that that trend is positive. Another big challenge I faced, how many of you deans raised your hand that you did not have a development director for all or part of a year? I know you, okay, raise your hands. So look around. We had, others are not here, they didn't have anybody. And so, you remember this? We had to go out and really put the development program back again. But now that we are staffed, I feel more optimistic about where we are going. Partnerships, you know about the IBM strategic plan. We're very excited, so watch for good developments there. We also have a much smaller pilot with Facebook. Again, we're the first ones to be doing that pilot. It's all about connecting sophomore students with alumni. And we'll tell you, we'll keep you posted on how well that goes. And PNCs was all about first-generation college students. All right. That took way longer, Michael Wade Smith, than I thought it would. All right. We're going to segue to strategic plan. Is this okay? Any questions about was that helpful? You'll have all the data. I'm going to quickly segue to the metrics of the strategic plan. To give me a minute, would you all come up and introduce yourselves? Gail, come on up. I'll just drink a sip of water while they do that. What unit you worked on, et cetera. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gail Dupuy. By day, I am the Associate Dean of Academic and Student Affairs in Speed School of Engineering, and I was one of the co-chairs along with Jeff Bumpus for the strategic plan.
Hello, I'm Jasmine Farrier. I'm the chair of the Political Science Department. I'd like to thank my dean, Dean Leonard, for appointing me, or at least suggesting my name to Gail for this committee. I was a co-chair along with Jeff Sun at the School of Education and Nat Irvin of the School of Business for teaching and learning. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Enid Trucios-Haynes, and I'm a law professor and director of the Muhammad Ali Institute, which is housed upstairs in Strickler Hall. And I was co-chair of the Invest Committee, along with Kim Cherie Lloyd, who will introduce herself in a minute, and John Klein from the medical school.
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Cherie Lloyd. I'm the director of orchestra and opera and the director of undergraduate studies in the School of Music. And I had the great pleasure to serve on the Invest group.
Hello, I'm Crystal Collins Camargo. I'm Associate Dean for Research at the Kent School of Social Work, and I had the pleasure to co-chair the work committee with Brian Beeford and Karen Chavez from the medical school.
Thank you so much. I have a quick question. Jake Beamer, does everybody here get a copy of the strategic plan? Fabulous. We have a gift for you. Make sure you pick it up, because we do want you to, seriously. Please pick that up. What I will do is, first of all, thank all of the people here, and you heard the co-chairs and others who are not here. Are there other co-chairs out in the audience that are not up here? Okay. There may be members of the committee. I will ask now. Members of the committees, the various committees, would you please stand? Thank you so much. So much work went into this. I'm deeply grateful. I also want to call out John Dries and the whole communication marketing team. Thank you, Michael Wade Smith, for that whole group on putting it together where it needs to be. Bob Goldstein and your team, thank you so much. I know you worked so hard to pull all of the data together. We're very, very grateful. And a special shout out to Jake Beamer. Jake, wave. Way back there. Thank you. Thank you. Really, they did so much. I should have warned Gail and Jeff Bumpus. I said, you know, I'm going to be co-chair with you, and that means you do all the work and then I'll come present it. And unfortunately, that has been a little bit of the case. But the reason for that was genuinely, and I think I've told you this before, but I'll do it very quickly. When I came on board, my board asked me, my board chair asked me, and the board member said, so when will we see your 100-day plan? Because in business, that's very typical. The CEO comes in, takes 3 months, gets the lay of the land, and they say, I've decided, these are the priorities. These are the areas, this is how we'll do it, this is how we'll spend. I said, no, don't do that. That does not work on a university campus. We're too complex, too different. We really need to work on this together. So I'm so grateful that this reflects not my plan, but our plan. And that's important for this to succeed. All of this comes from our collective efforts. So quickly, let's begin with the principles. I think that's a good place to start. What are our values? What are our principles by which we will operate? By now, I hope you've each memorized at least one of these. You've got to do this, okay? Because I want eventually at the end of the year, anybody we stop at the University of Louisville, they'll either tell us what those values are, or if somebody is not behaving appropriately, they'll be able to say why, right? They'll say, that's not how we should do things here, because we're a community of care. We're a community of care. And those words are important. It says we're not just a collection of individuals. We will function as a community, that we care. For our students especially, I want them to focus on self-care, very important, care for others as a cardinal family, and care for the community beyond us. Accountability. This goes all the way up and down the chain, accountability. People are counting on us to do our jobs. Accountability to the team. Respect, irrespective of position. That has 2 meanings for me. Doesn't matter where you are in the university hierarchy, you deserve respect. And the second aspect of it is, you and I might differ on something, but we owe each other respect. We'll also say, this is important, I've said this, we will be a place that prepares students for ideas. We don't protect our students from ideas. We have incredible faculty and staff who will coach, who will guide, who will stand by your side and get you ready for any idea that comes your way. We don't have to cower in fear. Diversity and inclusion. This is fundamental to who we are. False binaries. I hear that all the time. Unfortunately, there's a dean who shared, one more person who wrote, all this talk about diversity, you're diluting our excellence. That's just so wrong. We are all about inclusive excellence. And so that's something we will strive for. Integrity and transparency, helping everybody identify for themselves their own noble purpose. I'm thinking of students here, but it's grit. Where does resiliency come from? A big part of it is knowing you're working for something larger than yourself. Agility and leadership at every single level. I could go on about each one, but I won't. If this will make you dizzy, you can look away for a bit, because I'm going to go to the metrics. How many of you have your copies with you? Okay, not enough. Can you grab a few? All of these are in the booklet. How about that? Because when you grab that, you can follow through. We said, first of all, we will be a great place to learn. Everybody remember that? Okay. So, as Dr. Ferrier told you, their group took all the great ideas for making it a great place to learn and consolidated it into a statement. The University of Louisville is a great place to learn because it prepares students for success now, next, and beyond. Now, next, and beyond. Excuse me. We do this by supporting the whole student through transformative, purpose-driven, and engaged learning. So those are the keys. There are 3 sub-strategies. How will we know how we are doing? We're going to be tracking these. I told you that we don't do as well with low-income students and that we need to do better. Right now, about 8% of our student aid dollars go to need-based aid. In 3 years, we want to increase it, more than double it, to 20%. Okay? 20% of our aid will go to need. Undergraduate enrollment, you'll see that we will be tracking first-generation college students, STEM plus H students, adult students who are coming back to return, online students, international students. All of those metrics are laid out. I'll be honest, on most of these, we gave ourselves big goals because there's two ways you can do it. You can give yourself from 8 we'll grow to 10%, or you can say from 8 we'll go to 20%. We've chosen to be bolder in the goals that we set out. On professional enrollment, you'll see that it says it'll be static. The reason is it depends on the proportion of faculty. Like in medicine, law, we can't just increase numbers. There are numbers of faculty that need to be matched. And we will be closely tracking how we're doing with our underrepresented minority students in every step: retention, progression, graduation, as well as low-income college students. Anything you want to add to this? Oh, Jasmine, that sound okay? Other initiatives, I really hope you'll take the time to read through what will success look like. These are the numbers, but you'll see we gave descriptions. A vision is nothing but a vivid description of a future state. So we tried to explain what success would look like, all right? So these are the quantifications of what those would be, but please read those as well. Great place to work. Again, the goal, we will be a great place to work because we will be a workplace dedicated to personal growth and professional development. We'll accomplish this by fostering a culture where faculty, staff, and administration live our institutional values. On this, what are the things we will be tracking? And this is very similar to what UK has, as well as other ACC universities have. If we want to be an inclusive workplace, we will be talking about these. What percentage of our faculty are female, African American, Black, Hispanic, Latinx, Asian, Native Hawaiian, American Indian? Same for staff, administrators. This year, we'll be setting up the baseline. We don't have baselines for a lot of these. We want to look, and we want to see what our targets should be. Similarly, when we say we'll provide personal growth and professional development, we're going to track what are our opportunities through the Employee Success Center. How many people are participating? What types of professional development opportunities are we providing? Who's taking advantage of this? I will say something here that some of you have heard me say before. For people who are recording this or reporting this, there's a misconception, not for you all, in general, when people read it or think about it, they think, oh my gosh, universities, they must be so diverse. It must be like nirvana, it must be excellent, heavenly. I will tell you, we talk a good game, but we do far worse than most public companies. We really do. And so once we get the baseline and set up the goals, you will see that. But if we don't track it, we'll never know. That's what we'll be doing. One more thing. You will see that our last data for 2018 was only 26% of our employees participated in climate surveys. I'd like to see that go up, way up, to 40% of our people. Because the ones who are not responding, is it apathy? Have they given up? Do they think nobody will listen, nobody will care? I really hope that people will respond. I read this right? The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. It means people don't even care anymore to provide their feedback. We want them to speak up. We may not like everything they say, but at least we guarantee them that we will read, we will respond, and I promise to come back and tell you, this we can do, this we cannot do, and here's why. This maybe not yet. So I promise you that we've set ourselves big goals there. I really hope we see more people responding. Again, great place to work. Similarly, you'll see how we're tracking everything. let me pause. Great place to work. Anything else to add? Sound okay? All right. Great place in which to invest. This was probably the most complex because it was so broad, because we have so many constituencies that invest in us. The state, the employers, alumni, the community. There's just a lot of people, corporate partners. And here we said we'll be a great place in which to invest because of our demonstrated impact on the economic, social, and cultural health and well-being of Louisville, the Commonwealth, and beyond. So the metrics here, we're a Research One university. We cannot ever afford to ignore that or to let that fall by the wayside. You might say, why does it matter? They're getting a degree. It absolutely matters because you're learning from people who are at the cutting edge of their field. You're learning from people whose insights may not appear in a textbook for years to come. That really matters. So for this, we're going to be focusing on our research expenditures. By the way, for those of you who may not realize it, research expenditures doesn't mean what we're spending, it's the funds that we are getting. What are we able to? Research awards, peer-reviewed publications. How many people do we have? What kind of postgraduate education and doctoral education do we have? We're looking at the community. How many events are we holding? I like how they've put this in as both. How do we bring the community to campus? And how do we bring the campus to the community? So both ways, online, in person, what are we doing? Donors, what's the level of engagement? What kinds of fellowships do we have for our students? Does that make sense? So far, you've seen everything at every step of the way. The metrics are what we added on and wanted to bring to you. So what are next steps? Gail Dupuy enjoyed the process so much and said, I don't know why you assigned 10%. I got it all done in 5% of my time. But in all seriousness, I'm so grateful, Gail, and thank you to Dean Emmanuel Collins for allowing this. We will have Gail charged with actually implementing this. She's been in every single meeting, knows what's happening. So the way we look at it for next steps, we'll do this together. So look for some of you to be tapped to be part of the implementation committee. So this will be faculty, staff, administrators, constituency representatives, perhaps people in the community. That remains to be seen. But this is the group that says, okay, Beth is giving me, maybe not in the communities. That's fair enough. That's true. Because these are people who will say, get the job done. And people will be supportive in ideas, but doing it is probably us. That's fair. So we will get back to you on this. What are the committees that will come out of it? One is the grand challenges. Remember, we said together we all have to identify. I'd like it to be about 5. There's no magic to it. You might say it's 3, you might say it's 7. A manageable number of big themes that the entire university's research enterprise can be rallied around. It doesn't mean if it doesn't appear here, it's not important. That's not it at all. The grand challenge is aging is an example of one that we've already made a commitment to. Because aging, music, you could study how does music impact aging. Philosophy, engineers and nurses might work together to try to say what are new products, how do we work on it. Does that make sense? That's the level of a grand challenge. That will be faculty-led. You will see more of that. We will have a committee for the cardinal principles. Let me see if people were paying attention. C. What does C stand for? A community. Oh, I like this. So community of care, accountability, respect, these are the kinds of things. But they are just words. We want to say, how is it reflected in who we hire? How is it reflected in evaluations? How is it reflected if there's bullying behavior? How can we say that's not consistent with our principles? So there'll be a committee that's looking at that. And of course, everything we've talked about. We've laid out some big numbers. To take our financial aid from 8% to 20% for need, how do we do that? What are the trade-offs we're making? That's part of the implementation process, okay? And now I'm going to give you 2 minutes reception, people. We have a reception. Don't forget that, because I want you to talk more about this. Are there a couple of questions that anybody here can answer for you? Ask them. Okay. Thank you, Gail. Any questions or comments? Do you feel comfortable with where we are? We remember, how much is our timeline to meet all these goals? 3 years. The clock is ticking. Now we can hold ourselves accountable. We need to say in 3 years, and I don't know about you, my favorite slide, I'm going to go back to that and leave it on that. I know I can do better. Look away. What we do matters. What we do matters. How about saying, we're not just going to be a top performer, we will be the top performer. How about saying, in research, we won't just be comfortably in the bottom quartile, we're really going to show that we can grow. How about showing once and for all something that I know to be true, beyond all shadow of doubt, that diversity and inclusion are key to excellence. I'm up for it. I hope you are too. Thank you so very, very much for your time. I'm going to see if there are any questions.